Last night I looked at those proposed new pandemic laws in Victoria, looked at the various state of emergency powers in all the states, and I brought you the breaking news that the New South Wales government, which already has got emergency powers extended through till March next year, was actually planning to extend those powers a further year, locking them in for almost a year and a half through to March 2023, when the next New South Wales state election is due. This struck me immediately as plain wrong. Wrong in policy and in substance, and terrible politically. With the government party room in revolt yesterday at this proposal, Police Minister David Elliott came on this program, and he did not hide his own opposition.
As you know, Chris, as a member of Cabinet, my comments in the public domain have to be restricted, and that is against every instinct in my body, as you well know. But I certainly appreciate the fact that there is anxiety amongst parliamentarians, and I certainly appreciate, and I've heard the message from constituents right across the state, and indeed my own constituents, that any changes to these laws, any changes or any extension of authority to ministers or indeed the bureaucracy needs to be challenged. That's appropriate, and I encourage that.
You can hear there, he's obviously constrained by what he can say as a member of Cabinet. Clearly, it's a live issue within New South Wales Cabinet now, with disagreement within the government. Dominic Perrottet want to stamp on this straight away and rule this out. You can't extend those emergency powers for what would be 17 months until the next election. It goes against everything the New South Wales government has been trying to do. This will be big news tomorrow. We will follow it up. We certainly are following it up. As I said there, Premier Perrottet needed to step in. I thought the idea would be scrapped the next day, i.e. today, but in fact it was dumped about half an hour after that went to air. I turned up at a pub for dinner and they'd already scrapped it. So the Premier didn't muck around. Let me get the reaction now from New South Wales Labor Party's health spokesperson, Ryan Park, who joins me from the Sydney CBD. Thanks for joining us, Ryan. This would have been unthinkable, wouldn't it, to extend these powers right out till the next state election?
Well, Chris, this is a complete overreach. At a time when we need business back to work, employers back to work, our economy open, we can't have a situation where these laws are going for close to 18 months, given the situation and the low rates of transmission. That's not reasonable, that's not fair, and I don't think that's what the community expect. It's certainly not what workers or business expect.
Can you tell us about the process here? Because it seemed to come out of the blue. Of course, the government doesn't need to go back to Parliament to keep having the powers extended normally. They're already extended out till March last year. Were they proposing to actually put a bill into Parliament to change the laws to keep these powers in place?
Well, what I was shocked by when they came and first spoke to me, there was no bill to even have a look at, and yet it was going to be rammed through in the last 5 or 6 days of the New South Wales Parliament. Now, even as late as yesterday, we didn't see a bill. It was meant to be introduced yesterday. Quite clearly, there was internal problems with their own party processes, and it got pulled. But Chris, you can't have a situation where legislation like this goes on indefinitely when we're trying to send a signal to people, business, workers, it's time to get back to work, particularly over what will be, hopefully, a very, very good trading period for people over Christmas. I mean, Chris, the amount of small businesses I've spoke to over the last 18 months, it's a miracle that that many are still in business. What we can't do is send signals that very quickly we can be back under very, very tough restrictions. We can't do that anymore. We've got people to a good point where they're safely vaccinated. Of course, we'd like to see more, but we've got a good number vaccinated. What we now need to do is just focus on making sure we can get people back to work, support businesses opening and get our economy moving again.
Got an excellent number in New South Wales. You're talking close to 95% fully vaccinated. Ryan Park, when did the government first come to you to brief you that this proposal will be coming forward?
Yeah, last week they came in and initially spoke to me, and what I was a bit shocked by, there was no bill or nothing to have a look at. And I said to them, when do they intend on doing this? And it was sort of made clear to me that they were looking at doing it over this week or next week. Now, that's the last half dozen days of Parliament, Chris, and that would be a pretty substantial bill changing legislation that puts in place these orders and restrictions, or the ability to put these orders and restrictions in place till into 2023. That would be the end of the parliamentary term, the end of the election cycle, and I don't think that's what the community expect, and I certainly don't think that's what workers and small business need right now.
No, it just doesn't seem to be necessary. It sounds like you did the right thing and kept quiet about this until you saw a proper proposal, and then it was blown up in the Liberal Party room.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't go making judgments about things until I know exactly what they plan on doing. And the other thing is, Chris, there's no need for it in the last half dozen days of Parliament because we're back in February next year anyway. Parliament always sits in February. If by some chance, and we all hope this is not the case, that there's been a difficult winter in Europe and there's been spikes and problems, well, then you can start to have a look at this. But we're a long way from that at the moment. And the last thing I want to do as a parliamentarian and a legislator is send a signal to business and workers that we're worried about things and we might be going into further lockdowns. We can't afford that because every time we go into lockdowns, businesses close, people lose jobs and our economy goes backwards.
Thanks for joining us, Ryan.
Thanks a lot, Chris.
Ryan Park there, the New South Wales Shadow Health Minister. Labor in New South Wales have been pretty sensible in supporting the New South Wales government's pandemic management. As you know, New South Wales has managed this thing better than any other state effectively. This was right out of character to come down with this proposal. Brad Hazzard, the Health Minister, it was overruled by the party room and the Premier quickly yesterday. So it's a mistake they almost made and it's been corrected by the parliamentary processes, really, by politics. That's why these laws need to have caveats on them. That's why they need to go back to Parliament for renewal every now and then, because the political process can work. Crazy ideas can get blocked or stomped on or rescinded.